You're listening to Tech Talks, the TV industry podcast from Broadcast Tech magazine. My name's Jake Bickerton and I'm the editor of Broadcast Sport and Broadcast Tech magazines. In this episode of the Broadcast Tech Talks podcast, I'm speaking to Manchester Studios Managing Director Melanie Jones about the setting up of high-end TV studios in Manchester city centre on the famous former Granada Studios site.
In the original plans that they had for the site, they didn't actually have studios remaining in the complex. It was primarily going to be office spaces. There was quite a lot of residential that came into it, and big things like the cultural space, which is the factory, which is the big performance venue that's coming in at the back. So that was the main kind of anchor points of the original development. What had been the studios, they had no tech in them, so it was just power and four walls really. But we've had the opportunity to use them, so meanwhile we used for drama productions. So that was really where the studios first came back into use in some degree from 2015.
I see, so you started having dramas in there, just need that kind of four-wall space and somewhere convenient in the city centre.
Yeah, it was a kind of accidental thing. I'd only dealt with drama productions and done locations into commercial buildings before. And when I came to site here and saw that we had these 5 or 6 studio spaces that were just big empty boxes not being used, I kind of went, sure, somebody can use these. And funnily enough, we put a call out to Creative England and Screen Manchester, as it was at the time, and just said, do you have anyone that might use these? And we did 2 viewings, and 3 weeks later we booked the first guys and they came in for 6 months. That was January 2016. From then onwards through till August 2018, we had a continual flow through of quite big drama productions coming in. We brought Peaky Blinders to the city. I think they'd been in Liverpool the previous couple of seasons, and they came and did seasons 4 and 5 with us in Manchester. So we brought a couple of bigger productions into the city, which was good. And Snatch was quite a big one. They did a huge amount with us. We've had some really good drama productions came through. And by the time we then were able, as Allied London, to move the development forward with the construction of some of the bigger office buildings and stuff that were coming through, we'd actually realised and understood that we had a good and viable business there. The assets were worth a heck of a lot more as studio spaces, and certainly as a different kind of space than perhaps you would have thought of with an initial kind of office hat on. So that was where we properly formulated all studios, and it was agreed that it would go forward as a business in its own right. For anybody that is familiar with it, which is usually quite a lot of people, the areas that it covers is the Breeze Studio, or Garden Studio as it was known as under ITV, Stage 1, which is now our Studio 1, having had its full tech upgrade. Stage 2, which is where we've got the Crystal Maze live experience, which is the kind of go-through playthrough that's been put into Manchester. And then we've got the M1 studio block of 5 studios, because you've got the music recording one in there as well. So those are the main assets that Manchester Studios looks after within the new development, and as it's going to grow out from it.
Okay, that's really interesting. It's great background. And what made you decide to move from sort of providing 4-wall space for dramas to fully fledged TV studios?
The reason I saw an opportunity in the assets in the first place was because I've worked in buildings and property for a long time, and properties will always do best what they were built to do. We used them as 4-wallers because that's what they were capable of doing at the time. They are amazing purpose-built broadcast studios. They've got the galleries, they've got the back of house for audience shows particularly, but certainly for the kind of productions, if you're in broadcast where you've got quite a lot of talent, the travel connections are very good and easy to get into. You can be from the train station to the site in about 5-10 minutes, which is really nice and attractive. And if you want to get out all of the ancillary facilities that just all exist already because of the city centre location. So all of these different elements really lend itself to rebooting and putting back into the broadcast. But the other thing with it as well, I think, is that we just found that the demand was there. There's a demand and a drive to push more things regionally, as we know, and there are shows that can come up and out of London, but they have to have facilities that they can go into. So in order to do that, we have to be able to provide the right quality, the right level, the service and everything to go with it. Over the years under Granada and ITV, they've run some of the biggest entertainment shows that were around at the time.
What's he going to do for the drama productions that may want a stage? Previously, you were talking about maybe creating a sound stage just outside Manchester, or is that still on the cards?
No. So we did that actually. So we
right.
created the sound stages early last year, 2019, and they opened in April last year.
Right.
So they've been occupied. So we went for a site at Birchwood Park, which is really nice business park, great facilities on site, very nice green open environment,
Right.
partway between Manchester and Liverpool. And we've got 2 sound stages there now, one of about 10,000 square feet and one about 5,000.
Back to Manchester Studios. I guess the reconfiguring of spaces that were there already, with Studio 1 being the first one that you finished. Sounds impressive, a 4K studio space. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how you developed it, what you decided to put in there?
During 2019, we ran a hybrid kind of setup. So we ran a number of shows, all with flyaway galleries, which is obviously quite a lot of work, taking things in and out as you choose. It was nice and flexible for people, but it was quite a lot of work. Yeah. It was good for us in that it proved the case for really moving ahead with the investment, which is what we've done over the last few months. The upgrade of Studio 1 has been a joint design process between Anthony Gannon, that works in-house as our head of studios, and Raz Khan from 4KXL. They're both very, very familiar with the site, had both worked on the site in the past. Because Anthony, I think from an operational point of view, and works predominantly with the clients and had done at ITV, he really knows exactly how a studio needs to operate, what they need to be able to present to clients to be able to offer an adaptable service. And then Raz then lies in behind that and designs the systems, and then his team will install the systems, supplemented by our own studio team. Doing it in Studio 1 has been very helpful, because it's given us the blueprint now to take on to doing the main studio block. I think they're looking at different kind of technology there slightly, because we've got multiple studios alongside one another, and so we've got more opportunities for resilience and flexibility than in Studio 1 as a standalone.
If you've already managed to get things like all the green rooms and the production areas sorted out as well, are you ready to sort of bring in a client at this stage?
Our superstar dressing rooms are all complete now. We're hoping that our first clients through the doors will be some of the clients that we had in last year. So we're looking to bring Dragon's Den back in. Children's BBC we've done quite a lot with in the last couple of months, and certainly through last year. So we've got some pieces with them that we're just working through scheduling. The big one's probably with Possessed, where we did the pilot last year. The pilot was successful. I think those will be the first ones that we're looking to bring through. And there's a real mix in that with the types of use, actually, because you're going from an audience show, if we do end up doing audience in the current climate, through to much smaller ones where it's just more the use of the gallery and that side of it within the studio space.
And then with the main studio block, I know you ran through a little bit at the start, but how many additional studios, TV studios, do you think you'll be able to get out of that main studio block? And kind of roughly what's the ETA, do you think, of that?
Yeah, so the main studio block, we are doing very little physically in terms of changing the boxes, because they're great, they're purpose built, and I think sometimes with these kinds of things, when you get them that were built a time ago, you get something that was built in just a much better and more specific way than we perhaps do these days. So the actual boxes we're not changing, so anyone that's worked in Studio 12 or Studio 6 would get exactly what they expected. We will have the 4 main studios, which is Studio 2, 6, 8 and 12. And we're retaining the old numbering as well, the Granada numbering, because it just becomes confusing if you don't, I think. Right. We're having to reconfigure slightly around Studio 2 in order to provide access through to the recording studio at the back. It's a bit of a hidden gem, but there's an amazing recording studio that's hosted people like the Beatles and things hidden at the back of Studio 2. It's now come back into us as part of the wider studios project. Back of house, we've got to reconfigure a bit because the new construction took away a lot of the dressing rooms towards the back of to the studios. So we are refurbishing and reclaiming a number of dubbing suites and things that used to be within the old Granada HQ building. So those all come back in, and we're reconfiguring for the green rooms, the dressing rooms. We're trying to keep in the ethos of things that were always there, which was making it very quick and easy to get from your dressing rooms into the studio floor and stuff. So we're doing it all based around the experience for the talent and the production to try and make those things as simple as possible.
And with that main studio block, will each of those studios have their own gallery, or will you have a kind of shared gallery for that space?
So a couple of different modes of thought at the moment, and I suppose it's a TBC, but we're looking at definitely doing 2 to 3 full galleries. The IP infrastructure, obviously, layering in behind that so that you can use them interchangeably. We're looking to open around June 2021. There's potential that we may open with 2 to 3 galleries completed.
What about the public sort of Crystal Maze thing that you've got? Will that stay?
As an organisation, their company run a number of different concepts as well as the Crystal Maze, and it may be that in the future they may wish to stay on the site and stay within the complex, but they've got other concepts that would come through, and it'd be really nice to work with them on some of those.
What about post-production within your Manchester studio space? Are you going to bring those in, or are you going to work with partners for that?
Within the wider studios and EC UK development, we've got the Farm Group who took quite a considerable amount of space with us. It's about 25,000 square feet there. We've worked jointly with them on a number of productions. There's been quite a few clients that came through with us last year that have worked with us in studios and have done post with them. Because we are ostensibly a studios company, I wouldn't say that we've got any particular aspirations to go into it. We focus on what we're good at. You've got somebody else that's a specialist in their area. We've got great relationships with the guys at Farm, and there's lots of connectivity, there's a lot of infrastructure that exists between the studios and the buildings within EC UK. ABC Building is home to Studio Lambert, it's got the Farm Group, Title Roller here, Hoopla Animation are here. And we've also got Gobstopper in Bonded. So we've got dark fibre links between the office buildings and workspace and the studios. St John's was not originally conceived to be this enterprise and creative space in the same way that it's actually coming out to be.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Broadcast Tech Talks podcasts. Subscribe now and I'll see you next time.